All right, let's jump right in. We're about to unpack an idea about faith that honestly might just flip the script on what you've always thought it was really for.
I mean, it's a huge question, right? If you've been around church for any length of time, you've definitely thought about this. What's the point? What is faith's primary job?
And most of the time, our answers point outwards. We think of faith as the key to get something. Healing for our bodies, money for our bills, or that big breakthrough we're desperately waiting for. And hey, those things are absolutely real. But what if they're not the main event?
What if the most critical foundational use of faith isn't for external things, but for your internal world, for your character? What if you need faith just to be patient when you're tired, or kind when you're provoked?
Okay, so this leads us straight into something I think trips up so many of us. We'll call it the willpower trap. It's this idea that's everywhere, this lie that we can achieve real spiritual change just by trying harder. Just look at the contrast here. On the one side, you've got the voice of pure self-effort. I just got to grind it out, I'll fix my own attitude. But the Bible points to a completely different operating system. It doesn't say the just shall live by trying really hard. It says they live by faith. That's a totally different power source. And here's the thing you've got to get. There's no middle ground here. If you're not actively, intentionally living by faith, you automatically switch over to your default settings. And our default mode? Well, the Bible has a word for that: flesh. And let's just be real about what that default looks like. When someone hurts you, your natural gut reaction isn't usually forgiveness, is it? When you're totally wiped out, patience is the first thing to go. And when real pressure hits, all our good intentions can just snap. See, this isn't a moral failure, it's a power failure. And that's it, right there. That's the diagnosis. You're not a bad Christian for struggling with this stuff. You are simply underpowered. You're trying to run a divine program on a human battery pack, and it's just never going to work.
And if you want to see a perfect example of this in action, a real-time case study, you don't have to look any further than the Apostle Peter.
I mean, you can just picture him, right? So full of genuine love and passion, looking Jesus right in the eye and making this huge promise from the bottom of his heart. He meant it. He meant every single word. His intentions were 100% pure.
He meant it with everything in him. And yet, just a few hours later, when the pressure was on, that commitment completely crumbled. Not once, not twice, but 3 times. His willpower, fueled by his love, was just no match for his fear. And this gets to the absolute heart of the issue. Peter didn't suddenly stop loving Jesus. It wasn't a love problem, it was a power problem. He had all the right feelings, but he lacked the supernatural strength to make those feelings hold up under fire.
All right, so if trying harder is a dead end, where do we go? Well, we have to talk about the real power source. And to do that, we kind of have to redefine what we even mean by faith.
So, let's stop thinking about faith as just mentally agreeing that something is true. That's part of it, sure, but that's not the engine. Real faith, it's a connection. It's the power cord that you plug into a supernatural grid, allowing you to operate on a level that is not natural to you.
So what happens when you're plugged in? You get the ability to do the very things you can't do on your own. You can actually stay calm when every part of you wants to lash out. You can choose the right thing when temptation is screaming your name. You can show love when it's the last thing you feel like doing. That's not willpower. That is divine power. So it all comes down to this: who's in the driver's seat? Without that active faith connection, your emotions, your reactions, your tiredness, they're going to be driving the car by default. But with faith, you're consciously handing the keys over to your spirit, which is empowered by God to take the lead.
Okay, so let's zoom out. What's the end game here? What does this actually lead to? This is the path to real transformation. We're talking about a process where faith literally gets in and starts to rewire your actual character.
And listen, we have to be clear, the goal is not just behavior modification. This isn't about trying to staple on some good habits. We're talking about a fundamental identity shift, where your actual nature, your default reactions, begin to change from the inside out.
And this is the fruit. This is what starts to grow, not because you're forcing it, but because of the connection. Endurance when you want to quit, discipline that doesn't feel like a chore, real emotional stability. Godly responses instead of fleshly ones. These things become the natural result of being plugged into the right source.
This quote it nails it. Effort doesn't override nature.
only power does, and power comes through faith. Think about that for a second. You cannot outmuscle your own human nature. It will always win in a battle of wills. The only thing that can truly change your default settings is a greater power, and we access that power through faith.
So maybe we've been asking the wrong question all along. When we mess up, we need to stop asking, oh, how can I try harder next time? The much better, much more powerful question is, okay, in this moment, right now, how do I engage my faith? How do I plug in?
And that's the final thought I really want to leave you with. It's one thing to have faith for a miracle out there somewhere, but are you applying it to the core of who you are? Are you living by faith not just for your circumstances, but for your very character? Because that might just be the key that unlocks everything else.